has Bitcoin bottomed or not? And that's an important question to answer because it gives you an idea of whether it's safe to allocate to the crypto markets or not. Because as you guys already know, everything else follows Bitcoin. If Bitcoin is bullish, so is everything else. That's why it's so important to identify whether Bitcoin has bottomed or is this simply a window of opportunity to take advantage of. So we're going to take a look at the charts and see what it tells us. And the first thing I want to say is we're going to be using the 4-year cycle to determine this question because it has worked in the past, and until it doesn't, there's no reason to assume it's not working. So let's just take a look at the dates. It's a very simple analysis real quick. We're going to take a look at the last time Bitcoin topped, which was around October 25th. And we can see after this point, we simply have been trending down for the past couple of days. Exactly, it's been around 224 days. Typically, Bitcoin will take around 427 days. And that's just measuring the past cycles and seeing how that worked out. So if we just go back in time and we check out how long the last cycle took to bottom, we can see we topped out on November 8th, 2021. And then it took us 427 days before we got the next green candle to light up the next cycle. So you can see around January 2nd, 2023, we got the ignition and then the bull market kicked off and we went all the way to 120K. And before that, in 2017, you guys can see this one was a little bit longer. It topped off around end of December and then bottomed around April. And we got the first ignition with this candle here. We bottomed around December. So you can see topped in December, bottomed December, and then the ignition came in April. Let's just take a look at what happened here, which days these were. We had the top of Q4, so November, and then the bottom happened, which is down here on November again. So you can see there's a pattern here. It's not really a coincidence why in the past 2 cycles, we top at the end of Q4 and we also bottom at the end of Q4. There's a cycle repeating. And this has only happened twice, but this is all the data we have. So we have to work with something. Now, if we take a look at what happened here, we topped off in October, which is still Q4 2025. Now, if we measure out the days it took to bottom in the past, which is 427 days and 462 days, well, bottoming in December would make a lot of sense because it's in that window between 427 and 462 days. We don't know why this works, but this is the current cycle that's in play with Bitcoin. And that gives us a lot of insight as to how to act within this window. Right now, I would say it's a very high risk environment to be deploying money into coins. However, Bitcoin has never been stronger fundamentally. So by the time we get to this point here, sentiment is going to be absolutely destroyed. It's already extremely low, but it's going to get even worse as we head down here. Last cycle, we had a lot of blowups with a lot of VCs. A lot of people were over leveraged in the system and it all came tumbling down with this last red candle. So we're probably going to see something worse because it's already so bad and interest is not in crypto right now. It's completely in stocks. So by the time we enter this window right here on Bitcoin, we're not going to see any interest on the timeline for here, except for the people that know what they're doing, because the people that know what they're doing are tracking the cycles, whether it's in the form of 4-year cycles or other methods. And they also don't care about sentiment as a whole. All they care about is that mass fear is there, because when you buy fear, that's where you get the most value. No one was really interested in Bitcoin here. At least no one was talking about it, unless you were dialed into the market. And same thing back here, because the people that aren't experienced tend to buy at the tops. It's just how it goes. So we're going to take a look at some articles here to show you how Bitcoin is doing. So it pays to buy uncertainty. Bitcoin ETFs enter 2026. Here's why analysts expect over 180 billion in investment. So here are some stats. BTC DAT companies hold 1.1 million BTC, 5.7% of the supply since January 2026. MicroStrategy holds 720,000 BTC. So these companies are constantly stacking Bitcoin, and sovereign wealth funds are expanding their BTC exposure as well. ETF flows for Bitcoin this year are currently down. However, spot BTC ETFs were at 115 billion plus with assets under management by late 2025, and is projected to increase to 180 to 220 billion. So adoption is accelerating, even though sentiment and price is declining, which is a good sign. A lot of people don't have the time horizon that these institutions do. And right now we're playing an institutional game because Bitcoin has been adopted by the institutions, companies, and nations. So their time frame is not your time frame, which means we have to adapt. Because although we're not focusing on Bitcoin right now, Bitcoin is the one that leads the altcoins. So we're trying to ride the flow and not fight against the market. And as you guys can see as well, BTC ETFs now eligible for 401ks and pension funds, which unlocks trillions in retirement capital. So that's huge for Bitcoin. They've got a lot of adoption under the hood. And here's another institutional stat. 80% of institutions plan to increase crypto allocations, and 59% are targeting a 5% portfolio. This is the biggest institutional accumulation cycle in crypto history, and retail thinks it's dead. It's far from it. This is simply cycles playing out, and this is how the cycles manipulate psychology so they can extract out of retail and put it in the pockets of the institutions and the traders and investors who know what they're doing. So that's why we're focusing on this. So the same thing with Ethereum applies. We're operating under the premise of the cycles. However, Ethereum is really interesting because it operates a little bit differently. If we take a look at the top here, we topped up around the same time, a little bit later than Bitcoin, and then we bottomed earlier than Bitcoin. You can see we got the first bottom at 329 days, which is earlier by about 120 days on Ethereum. And we got the ignition, and altcoins started to rally on the back of Ethereum rallying. And that was good to see. But then the cycle got even shorter in 2020, I think 2022, mid-2022. Ethereum actually bottomed pretty nicely. Of course, we did retest the bottom with a double one, but we got the ignition on day 217. And if we extend that, it goes up to 378, which is more in line with Bitcoin. But the reason why I'm shortening the length on Ethereum is because in the past as well, you can see even though we did double bottom back here on March 20th, we still got the value buy a lot earlier than we did on Bitcoin. So Ethereum tends to capture demand a lot faster than Bitcoin does. And if we take a look at here, what we've got is another 329 days, which comes to around July. We might see a bounce, which makes me believe that July might be a bullish month for crypto, because if we see Ethereum rallying, we might see Bitcoin rallying, which will lead to the altcoins rallying, but just not indefinitely. It won't be the start of the bull season. It'll simply be a market where we get a pump towards the upside and then rally to the downside, something akin to what we saw over here. I don't think we got anything like that recently. You can see price action has been just straight down for the past, I would say 6 months, around 210 days. So price has been straight down and nothing goes down in a straight line. A lot of people are shorting this market, and I wouldn't be surprised to see liquidations to the upside as sentiment hasn't been great in crypto as a whole. Now let's take a look at what's going on for Ethereum under the hood. ETF flows, 9.8 billion inflows in 2025, and already a 11.6 billion cumulative inflows by April 26. So you can see the institutions are stacking Ethereum quite heavily. BlackRock alone has 6.5 billion in AUM, which is a signal on its own. March 2026, BlackRock launched Ethereum B, first major staking-enabled Ethereum ETFs. So that's huge in adoption. Supply side metrics, around 30% of ETH supply is staked, locked out of circulation, so that's reduced selling pressure. Ethereum exchange reserves lowest since 2016. Absolutely insane right there. And as you guys can see, institutions are heavily betting on Ethereum. 35% of world's leading financial tech firms have launched products on Ethereum, which is a huge sign for adoption and their intention. And price shouldn't deter you from investing in Ethereum. Just because we went sideways for the past 5 years doesn't mean that Ethereum is dead. This is actually a consolidation period. And when you consolidate longer, the energy towards the upside actually gets very aggressive once we begin to take off. If you take a look at gold and what it did, it's a great example of what Ethereum could potentially do. I'm not comparing the two as assets, I'm more comparing the charts. But let's take a look at the rest here. We got tokenized ROAs hitting 8.6 billion in Q1 2026. Ethereum holds 70% of that value. So everything is going on chain for Ethereum that's getting tokenized in the real world. Genius Act signed July 18, 2025, which is the federal stablecoin framework. So like I said, while Ethereum has been trading sideways and sentiment has been absolutely terrible, the adoption continues to accelerate. So don't let the charts fool you. Don't let the sentiment fool you. This is a great time to be paying attention to the value areas on Ethereum and Bitcoin, because in the future, past 2026, we're going to have another run for crypto that's most likely going to be akin to what we saw in 2017, especially with Ethereum, since it's been accumulating for the past 5 years. Now, finally, let's talk about Solana, because a lot of people are dunking on Solana as well. And we have pretty much the same idea going on in Solana. Everything moves in cycles with crypto because it follows Bitcoin. Same thing here with Solana. 420 days to find the bottom. And then the next one, Solana has less history because it's newer. And then the next one shows us it's most likely going to be around 434 days as we reach the end of the year in November or December, give or take a month. And the bottom is most likely going to be somewhere around the 28 billion, if I had to guess. I wouldn't be surprised to see Solana play the catch-up trade, move up to maybe 69 billion and then down to 30 to find the bottom. Now I'm going to get back to Bitcoin because I want to cover some scenarios, but first let's take a look at the fundamentals under the hood for Solana, because I think they're extremely bullish as well, even though if you took the timeline, they would have you be thinking otherwise. So institutional, Goldman Sachs disclosed 108 millions in Solana holdings. BlackRock's build fund is at 550 million on Solana. So once again, institutions are stacking up on these coins. A nationally chartered US bank opened native Solana deposits, and Sovereign Nation launched first blockchain-backed residency visa on Solana. So worldwide recognition right there. Payment rails, this is the biggest one. Visa, PayPal, Stripe, Western Union, Fiserv, I haven't heard of that one, all run production workflows on Solana. Huge payment adoption. a whole payment network happening because the speed enables them to use it for payments. And Visa uses Solana for USDC settlement. Western Union integrated for cross-border payments. Solana developer platform launched March 2026 with MasterCard, WorldPay, and Western Union. Absolutely crazy adoption happening on Solana, even though right now it's taken as kind of a joke because it's all about meme coins. Volume and ecosystem. DEX volume is currently at, or I should say in 2025, was 1.5 trillion versus Ethereum's 15.9. So 94x's Ethereum's. That's huge. And corporate treasuries on Solana are at 1.72 billion. RWA is valued at 2 billion and lending is at 1.2. So clearly we can see a use case divergence here with Solana being for payment rails, while Ethereum is more focused on RWAs. So now let's close the video off on Bitcoin and the different scenarios I'm looking at here, because this is really important to cover because it tells you how to act. So with these cycles, it doesn't mean we're simply going to go straight down to this area. Actually, there's 3 scenarios you could play out here. So cycles don't necessarily mean we're going to go down in a straight line. It's more of a measure of time than price, and it'll tell you around where Bitcoin will bottom in terms of time. So it could be October to December. It won't tell you about the price. You have no idea. So this is what could happen, technically speaking. In the more bullish scenario, Bitcoin starts to head up around July, August, even September, October, and then during this window, the Q4 window between October and December, we begin to see a bottom, and maybe we bottom at $89K or $90,000. And then the new cycle begins and we move towards the upside, right? That's the more bullish scenario. Now, the neutral and boring scenario is that we simply chop. We go sideways until we get to the point where we should bottom around this area and then we move up. Or we can do the more bearish one, which is maybe towards the upside for the next couple of months, and then we bottom down here at around $46,000, somewhere around there. Like I said, it's not so much about price, it's more about time. And these are the 3 scenarios that could really take place here. So I just want to illustrate it's not about price. That's what I want to hammer home here. It's nothing about price. It's all about time. So obviously this will get clearer as we move closer to the date, which is around end of this year at Q4. So that's something you have to pay attention to. Keep that on your radar. As of right now, we have so many months of price action left that we're going to have to decode. Or as of right now, altcoins are picking up steam. Whether that steam continues is yet to be seen. If Bitcoin pulls the bearish scenario and we start to move up to 98K or 100K, or even goes up to 144, obviously that'll be bullish for alts and that'll be a window of opportunity. And then somewhere on the Q3, Q4 side of 2026, we will see a drop. So that's my current plan on how to handle the altcoins, is if we get a move up, I will be selling my altcoins somewhere around mid this year or late this year, so I can load up again at the end of the year and get ready for the next cycle. So that's how I'm going to play this, and that's why it's important to know how Bitcoin cycles work, because it helps you gain an edge in this market. Instead of staying in the market when it's not conducive and having your money bleed, you simply time the window of opportunity where it's the best to allocate capital statistically. So I hope you guys got value out of this video. If you did, make sure to hit the like button, leave a comment, and follow me on Twitter.